To the right of the Tree of Souls, you see the slave cabins as they were back in that day. Now you have to understand too, now the slave cabins that you see here, even though they're authentic, these were the slave cabins that were used by the help, the craftsmen, the help that worked in that big house. Most of the Africans who worked, their cabins were on the other side, and they were not in as good condition. Those who worked for the master, they lived in these that where they could go over and they could do the work. Because the African, many people think that the African came here, that he was docile, that he just accepted this. That's not true. Charleston had 5 major fires. 3 of them were thought to be started by Africans. So they passed a law and they said no house can have a kitchen in it. All kitchens had to be in freestanding buildings. So what you will see over there as we go toward it, you will see 2, they call them dependencies, 2 dependencies. That's where the cooking was done, and then it would be brought over to the big house. So when we talk about the African and their experience here, a lot of people think that they just kind of took it and just laid down. That was not the case. As far as early as 1739, not far from here, off of John's Island, and that golden by the name of Jimmy had the first and one of the earliest successful slave revolts, and he used the drum. And because he used the drum, that's when the black coat said no more. Now you see, the reason that he could use the drum was because the plantation owners, they said that when they used the drum, they worked to the beat of the drum, and therefore they worked well. So when they used the drum as a means of calling people together, that's when the black code said no more drums. No more drums on the penalty of death. And so the drums were outlawed in silence, but the rhythms weren't. If you go to the church right now, you hear these.
Hey. Ah, there they go.
These are African rhythms. And if you go and see, these are things that we have been able to hold on to, and the unfortunate things that many of us have done them, but we have forgotten their African roots, their African origins. This place here, we hope one day, well, we're going to start this year in January to contact Charleston County, because now we don't have to deal with the city because the county owns this now, and we want to make sure that this area here stays preserved. You know, it's kind of rough to have it on a New Year's Day because most folks have been out all New Year's Eve and having their fun. So when you talk about getting up to come, oh man, I ain't going to, and particularly if it's cold, this is one of the nicer days we've had, I want you to know. It usually be freezing up in here. But you know, I don't care how freezing it is, I just stop and think about those who were here before me. They were in a lot colder weather. That's right. They were in a lot worse conditions, and they endured. So it's incumbent upon me, you know, if nobody else, I am here every single year to say thank you for bringing us through, for coming through what you came through, and that we stand on your shoulders, and we will never, ever forget you and what y'all have done to bring us to this point in our lives. Okay? So we're going to take a little walk on through the gate, and I'll show you the Tree of Souls, and then you can look at the slave quarters, but we'll need to be quick because we don't really want to have a bunch of a hassle. But that's a very important part of our heritage, okay?
I want to have my earpiece.
I'm loving my tripod right now.
We're really sneaking on time. I don't mind going to jail for this.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm glad I just climbed in them other bushes a little while ago.
Yeah, I need to see that so I can deal everybody out.
My ancestors, they paid for this.
I know that. So does this open during the week for tours?
Huh?
Is it open during the week for tours?
Not yet. They're supposed to be renovating it. Everybody got it closed down.
Do you know how to get to Andres' house? Okay, and then she's gonna go pick up our food.
I'm quickly right there in Charleston. Okay.
So when I went to those bushes over there,
Renovated now?
I swear I was having flashbacks for a minute.
It's being, that's being
Yeah, we're going through them bushes?
because that was a tobacco barn, and it was all going down. You can see the new lumber on there.
Yeah.
And the new use that they put here on the dependency. If you look at the big house, you can see where they added the kitchen, that area with the green roof. After the Civil War, they added that roof there.
Hold up. I'm on a plantation. This is just now kicking in. I'm on a plantation. Wow, it's a lot of property.
The size of those tree trunks.
Oh, this is very little compared to what it was.
So these are actually slave cabinets.
Dependencies.
Dependencies
This
is
is
what
where
they
they
call
did
it.
the cooking, yeah.
Oh, this is where they did the cooking. Right in these, right here.
Around to the back of the big house.
Oh my.
Those are the slave quarters right there.
Slave quarters over there. I've seen those. Okay, from the road.
Ooh, mercy.
It's called the Tree of Change. Tree of Souls.
Souls. S-O-U-L-S.
How many people got hanged from it? Is that why? Good Lord.
All these knots resemble
Heads.
Oh, the bell.
Yeah, the bell. That's where they would. They had the bell. Most of the plantations did have bell systems in which they called them, depending upon the number of rings.
Oh, snap.
The interesting thing about this place is this is not the original big house. The original big house was burned down during the Civil War. But this house is where members of the 54th Regiment, and that was made famous by the movie Glory.
Okay.
They were on a scouting expedition, and they worked in the building when some Confederates came through. So they ran up and hid in the attic, and they stayed there. And while they were there for like 2 days before the Confederates left. While they were there, they wrote their names and their companies on the wall, and that was found most recently when they started to do renovations. Actually started doing a lot of the history of the place here. Also, this was at one time the Freedmen's Bureau. This is where many of the folks on the island after the war they came and got their deeds for land. Of course, after they finished up with the Reconstruction and pardoned all of the plantation owners, they came back and forcefully took the land back away. But over here, those are the slave quarters, and they also did the slave quarters. One of those is the church. And that's where, you know, you look at those little buildings and yeah, I guess a family could be there. But in reality, 10, 12 people were living in every last one of those little buildings there. And up until the 1970s, families lived in there. The children used to be ridiculed to death. They used to call them slaves when they went to school, because the school bus didn't stop. The school bus used to stop over here, and folks did not, you know, they just did, you know, as they got older, the first thing they wanted to do was get away. And once the older folks died off, everybody, you know, it just kind of.
They were actually descendants from.
Some were descendants, some were just people who lived on James Island. But most of the enslaved Africans on James Island were part of the McLeod plantation, because it was said that the McLeod plantation was so large that you could not set foot on some soil that was not part of the plantation itself.
And James Island.
Yeah, for James Island, yeah.